What if I told you that the path to becoming a billionaire has almost nothing to do with how much you earn? Seriously, it's not about a bigger salary or just working harder. It's about running a totally different mental operating system. So let's unpack what that really means. So let's start with a big question. What is the real difference between a millionaire and a billionaire? And yeah, okay, it's 1,000 times more money, we get that. But the gap in their thinking, oh, that is infinitely wider. And that gap is exactly what we're going to dive into. And here it is, the core idea of this whole explainer. The jump from having millions to having billions isn't just about doing more of the same. It's a fundamental shift in mindset. It's kind of like switching from basic math to calculus. The rules, the strategies, the entire game, it all just changes. And look, this isn't just some fun theory. A huge report by PwC found that in just 2 decades, 917 self-made billionaires created over $3.6 trillion in wealth. I mean, that number is it's hard to even wrap your head around. That doesn't happen by accident. They were all running this very specific operating system. So what are its core functions? Okay, the first major software upgrade you have to install is moving from the mindset of an earner to an owner. This is where the game truly begins. It stops being about the size of your paycheck and starts being all about the size of the assets you control. Now, check this out, because this slide really shows you what I'm talking about. A millionaire's portfolio, often pretty heavy on things like real estate. But look at the billionaire. A whopping 70% of their wealth is tied up in their business interests and private equity. They're not just buying assets, they're building and buying entire systems that create value. And this quote just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? You don't get to a billion-dollar valuation by trying to hoard 100% of your company. I mean, ask Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk. They own fractions of their empires. The math is simple. A small slice of a giant pie is worth so much more than the whole of a tiny one. So the bottom line is this. The whole objective shifts. It's not about total control anymore. It's about explosive growth. And to get that, you have to be willing to give up pieces of the pie, to share equity in exchange for the capital, the talent, and the access you need to get massive. But owning a piece of a huge company, that's just step one. The next part is how you make it grow like crazy. And that is all about leverage. It's the art of multiplying your power to get results that seem, well, almost impossible. And the main tool for that leverage? It's something called OPM, other people's money. While most of us are taught to save our own money, billionaires are thinking about how to use other people's capital. It's how you can scale a vision way, way beyond the limits of your own bank account. I mean, just look at the difference here. The standard millionaire mindset often celebrates bootstrapping, pulling yourself up by your own financial bootstraps. But the billionaire mindset, it sees that as a limitation. They actively go out and find external funding, whether it's through debt or selling equity, to grow way faster than their own money would ever allow. Let's walk through a super simple example so you can see what I mean. Let's say you've got $80,000 to invest. The standard way to do it is to just put that 80 grand to work. But if you use the billionaire mindset, you leverage it. You might borrow an extra $20,000 from a broker. And just like that, you've got $100,000 working for you, even though only 80% of it is actually yours. That is the power of leverage right there. And here's where the magic happens. In a good year, without leverage, your return is a solid 16%. But with leverage, your return on your own money jumps to 18.5%. You've literally amplified your gains. Now, of course, you got to be careful. This is a double-edged sword, and leverage can magnify losses too. But billionaires master taking these kinds of calculated risks. All right, the third and maybe the most important piece of this whole operating system is a radical shift in your time horizon. Forget about quarterly reports. We're talking about strategic patience. We're talking about thinking in decades, not days. And this is a huge one. Billionaires don't run their businesses. They design them. They are the architects. They have this grand vision, but their first move isn't to get in the weeds and start hustling. It's to find the absolute best person, a CEO, to execute that vision and then give them everything they need to build it and scale it. And thinking long-term like this gives you this incredible psychological advantage, which is captured perfectly by Warren Buffett's famous line. While everybody else is panicking during a market crash, people with a decade-long view, they see something totally different. This long-term view completely reframes risk. For a billionaire, a financial crisis isn't a disaster to survive, no way. It's a massive, once-in-a-decade buying opportunity. It's a Black Friday sale where great companies go on discount, and empires can be built by the people who have the cash and the guts to act. Okay, so we've got the mindset, but who's the person behind it? What kind of person can actually run this OS? Because it's not just a set of ideas. It's powered by a very specific collection of personality traits. Across the board, researchers see the same patterns over and over. First, there's an appetite for clever, calculated risk. Then, there's this obsessive focus and a just dogged determination to hit their goals. But really, it all boils down to two meta skills: the ability to make a few incredibly important strategic decisions and the mastery of persuasion to get everyone else on board to execute that vision. Ultimately, if you remember just one thing from all of this, let it be this powerful shift. You stop being the person running around frantically inside the machine, and you become the architect who designs the machine itself. You work on the system, not just in it. So, I'll leave you with this final thought. The biggest constraints we think we have are often self-imposed. Not enough money, not enough time, not enough skill. But the Billionaire operating system teaches us to just reframe that whole problem. So the real question is, if those constraints were gone, if you had access to other people's money, time, and talent, what massive problem would you dedicate yourself to solving? Because that's where the real journey begins.